Retinoblastoma is a mimic, and when Feroz asked me to talk about masquerade, we all, as ophthalmologists, know that masquerade is when a disease mimics another disease, a, a less malignant condition. But looking further into the word masquerade brought me to this situation where you had these masked balls, and that was what a masquerade originally was, where people would pretend to be what they were not, just like retinoblastoma pretending to be something else. And this brings me to the story of this 4-year-old child who presented like this. And it's a tragic story. And part of the purpose of this presentation is not to let this happen. So this child was diagnosed with endophthalmitis in a particular place. And this child underwent a vitrectomy along with intravitreal antibiotics, and he wouldn't get better. So he was taken to another place where they decided that there was nothing that could be done, and they did an evisceration. And this is a month later. And we keep coming across these scenarios where intraocular surgery has been done on a patient simply because the child doesn't present the way a retinoblastoma is usually known to present. So this is something we are all very familiar with. Most of the patients that we see have leukocoria. Leukocoria could be because of other causes, but then everyone knows that if you see leukocoria, please rule out retinoblastoma. And for us in India or in Africa, this is again a scenario we are fairly familiar with. A child presenting with a fungating mass. Seema showed something very unusual where there was an orbital lesion which mimicked this retinoblastoma presentation. But most of us are fairly familiar with this one presentation. But what about the other presentations? The other presentations that mislead us into thinking that the child is probably suffering from something else. And I've just listed a few of them: squaring glaucoma, ocular inflammation, hemorrhages in the eye, inflammation in the orbit, and even phthisis bulbi. This is all of us, most of us here have trained in LV Prasad with Dr. Hunawar, and this is a paper that came out with data from Swati, where they found that 75% of children who are presented to the institute presented with leukocoria. Around 5% presented with squint, and 6% presented either with an enlarged lobe or proptosis. And there, in descending order, there are other. So around 25% of patients present with a scenario other than a leukocoria. So let's look at some of it. This is a child who primarily has a squint. If you look very carefully, there is leukocoria. If you ask your the parents of your children who come to you, many of them actually had a squint before they developed a leukocoria. So if we sensitize parents, if we sensitize our pediatric ophthalmologists and our other ophthalmology colleagues, that if you see a squint, please dilate the child, look at the macula. It isn't difficult, and you might actually pick up retinoblastoma there. So this is the other scenario where you have a child. We are quite familiar with seeing children presenting with ectropion uvea, NVI, and raised intraocular pressure, but they can also present with a more advanced form with ophthalmos, where they even have habstria. But again, all of us need to be aware that these patients may be harboring retinoblastoma, and it's a good idea to do an ultrasound and rule out retinoblastoma before you go ahead. Dr. Santosh keeps showing us pictures of children who've undergone a tuberculectomy with a metastasis coming on later. Okay, this is another scenario where you see a white hypopion in an eye which is quiet. Now that should ring alarm bells. Why should an eye be quiet? GRA is not very commonly seen among our ophthalmology colleagues. And this is a child who has a retinoblastoma. You can see the shifting fluid inside the anterior chamber. And if you do a slit lamp examination, you will find that these cells are larger. They're actually clumps of cells. And this hypopion is white, unlike what you see with a hypopion resulting from an infection. Now, again, an ultrasound itself would have helped make a diagnosis. This is a rarer presentation. Seema sent me these pictures of one of her patients. We do see patients with diffuse infiltrating retinoblastoma who often present with this scenario where they have iris nodules, where they have a pseudo hypopyon. But those are fairly easy to diagnose because they have fundus lesions which are picked up, ultrasound features which are picked up. But this is a patient where the fundus appeared normal, the central fundus. This was a scan which did not show anything significant in the eye. And this is a UA finding. So this is one of our fundus pictures with an endoscope, which shows a very peripheral tumor here. And as she is drawn here, there are small peripheral tumors and involvement of the pars plana as well. And now if you look carefully at this CT scan that was ordered, you see a tiny mass here. Difficult to say whether this is calcification, but definitely there is a mass now that you look at it in hindsight. Okay. This is again a presentation. This is a child who had undergone antechamber paracentesis to drain out the hemorrhage. And after the blood was drained, the gentleman who did it found that there was something else lurking behind the lens, and that is how the patient came. But this is the ultrasound. So the ultrasound shows that there is a mass lesion with calcification. And we need our colleagues to go back and look at the ultrasounds. And this is the other eye. So if the child had been seen under anesthesia and the other eye had been examined before jumping into doing a hyphema drainage, the diagnosis would not have been missed. And this is the MRI of the child, which clearly shows on T1 imaging tumor in the left eye. The right eye is smaller with hemorrhage and tumor filling the eye. Vitreous hemorrhage is again one of the less common presentations, but here you can see other signs. You can see the tumor mass lesion here. You can see the ectropion uvea along with the NVI. Again, an ultrasound would have picked up the diagnosis. This is a child who's presented with a cataract, but you can see the vitreous, the iris nodules here, large iris nodules. And this is a child who's had cataract surgery. And there was a vitreous hemorrhage behind, which is when this child gets referred. And this child, again, had retinoblastoma in the other eye as well, which was missed. Okay. Child presenting with inflammation. I showed you the first patient where the child had undergone a vitrectomy. This is another child who has inflammation. He has vitreous hemorrhage. He has a little bit of hyphema as well. And a child who has presented with this lid swelling. There is proptosis, diminished eye movements, chemosis, typical of an orbital cellulitis. We need to be aware that these kids could also be harboring a retinoblastoma, and then an ultrasound simply shows you the intraocular mass lesion with the calcification within the mass. And this is typical of a necrotic retinoblastoma presenting with sterile orbital inflammation. To summarize, retinoblastoma is a great mimic, and it is important, extremely important to suspect retinoblastoma in the atypical presentations. So every child presenting to an ophthalmologist with squint, glaucoma, red eye, proptosis, orbital cellulitis, even phthisis, we need to first rule out retinoblastoma. We just need to be aware that retinoblastoma can be present in such eyes. And all you need to do is a good, proper evaluation, examination of both the eyes under anesthesia, imaging it. We all have access to ultrasound B scan. And for most of these patients, in most of these scenarios, an ultrasound itself would have picked up the telltale signs. And for God's sake, please do not proceed for any intraocular surgery without ruling out retinoblastoma in these cases. Timely diagnosis and referral holds the key to survival for these children. Thank you.